Hi, and welcome to the NBA Economy Show. This is Fritz, just coming with some updated information. Finally, the training camp roster is finalized. Camp is only in 3 days, and we had the finalized roster, and I think there were a few surprises. I didn't anticipate it, and I don't think anybody else anticipated. Everybody thought certain names were going to be protected using the two-way roster spots, and they weren't. So this training camp roster doesn't solve any questions, but it adds intrigue. It deepens questions going forward, and it indicates that upcoming changes are going to be made. We still haven't had a resolution to Mitchell Robinson's contract extension. I think it would be relieving, even if they came with a statement as we'll talk about later, or we'll talk about later in the year. But just no statement on it at all. It adds some tension and adds some questions. So this week we saw the additions of Malcolm Brogdon and Landry Shamet, and neither one were signed to guaranteed contracts. Neither were signed uh, to actual roster spots. They were given Exhibit 9 contracts. So very much a camp deal. The Knicks have 12 players currently on the roster. Even though they have 21 coming to camp, those two roster spots are not filled as of yet. Um, so everything is up in the air. So if we see some outstanding um, play in the preseason, or they see something in camp, the Knicks are very flexible. So they could make a change at any time. I think just on the way the roster is constructed right now, it indicates a change is coming very soon. Um, doesn't have to happen before camp. So, um, however, if you're going to you have a new coach who wants to establish a new culture, who's installing a new offense and most likely a new defense. He probably wants that player in camp. Um, so, what does this roster look like? Okay, and just to look at our cap sheet, we did see Landry, Shamet, Brogdon. They're not on the cap sheet. They're Exhibit 9s. They actually show up a little down here because they're not permanent additions. It's very much in the air. Muhammad Diawara also on Exhibit 910. The reason they say 910 is because they're not exactly sure which one they gave them on these contracts. Okay, but let's look at the roster. And this is where the interesting part comes in, because we just assumed certain players were going to get these two-way contracts. Um, Kevin McCullough, we always knew that Kevin McCullough, they had to keep him safe. He needed a contract. We really didn't think he was going to come back last year, and he did. He 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 even though he was just coming back, he kind of showed the reason why the Knicks took a chance on him. The big question, the big two-way contract that's kind of caught everybody by surprise, is Trey Jemison III, and he's kind of like a big bruising center power forward. Um, he's not super skilled, but he's kind of like the solid guy. And the way that they would lock him into a two-way contract is very intriguing. Because if you went to Westchester, I don't think anybody would like on another team would be, let's take him off the Knicks roster. Wouldn't you want to protect someone else? Um, so safe guaranteed contracts. These are players who have contracts on the Knicks. They're all guaranteed. Carlton Towns, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson. Starting five. Our bench, these players have NBA contracts. You're not going to see them cut. Pacome Dadier, Ariel Hukporti, Tyler Kolek, Miles McBride, Mitchell Robinson, Jordan Clarkson, Gershon Yabusele. The not safe. And I put the exhibit 9s next to those players. So Shamit has that exhibit contract. So he is not safe on the roster. Even though we're 99% sure he's going to make the roster, he is in the not safe list. Matt Ryan, he's a body for camp. You get to bring 21. Bring in a name who you're cool with on the organization. That was Matt Ryan last year. Malcolm Brogdon signed with us after the Ben Simmons. We waited for Ben Simmons. He wasn't down. The Knicks go with Malcolm Brogdon, who's kind of been chilling in Wizards with the Wizards last year. Hopefully he's healthier. Actually, I put McCullough here, but he doesn't belong here. He is safe. He is in a two-way. Alex Len is another player in the not safe list. Is an Alex Len a Knicks type player? I don't know. Alex Len wouldn't have been a Tibbs player, but we know we have a new coach, and Alex Len actually played for our new coach. So do not discount Alex Len. I wouldn't just put him here and say, hey, he's just a body for the 21. Diawara, he's an exhibit contract, but they are expecting him to get that two-way exception. I'm sorry, second round exception. But currently, if they're going to try to get Shamit and Brogdon in, something has to change. So we're kind of penciling him in as someone who's going to make the roster. Garrison Matthews. I kind of take him as backup for insurance for Landry Shamet. Landry Shamet got hurt last year, and that Matt Ryan kind of took his place until he came back. I think this is kind of where Garrison Matthews. So if someone gets hurt at camp, if Shamet or Brogdon get hurt in camp, I think Garrison Matthews is kind of like a guy who can come in and probably hold it down for a couple months if it came down to that. Okay, so we had Dink Pate. He signed an exhibit contract, but then they cut him from the exhibit contract. So basically, the plan is he's going to start in Westchester. The unfortunate part of that is he is not protected by the Knicks. The Knicks have his G League rights. So for this year, if he's in the G League, he plays for the Knicks. While he's on the Knicks roster, another team has somebody hurt or they have an open two-way spot, they can take Dink Pate away from us and put him on an NBA roster, and they don't have to give us anything. That's the scary part. That's why I'm kind of intrigued why they gave Trey Jemison a roster spot and not Dink Pate. And Tosan Obuserwin, he's actually a two-way contract. He's kind of safe for now. I have a couple of these people not crossed out. So people we kind of thought were going to be on the roster this year. There are names that you thought the Knicks were going to bring into camp that never did. Anton Watson, who we brought on from the Celtics last year, is not on the camp roster. So that's interesting. Um, James Najee, we have his NBA rights. Um, he been playing overseas the last few years, and this year he expressed his desire to go to the NBA. So he was so confident that he said he was not going back overseas this year, that he was going to stay in the United States, and he came back to train in New York. He is not even on the camp roster. So I'm very intrigued why he's not on the roster. Why would you give a roster spot to someone, um, not give it to someone you have their rights to, and who says that he is pursuing his NBA dream? Perhaps maybe James Najee is involved in some talks that they don't even want to bring him to camp. They don't want to even risk injury. Very intriguing. James Najee is not on the camp roster. Um, Marshawn Beauchamp. So we brought him on last year. He really didn't play well for the Knicks last year. Um, he is like an offensive spark, but couldn't get the offensive going. Of course, his defense isn't good, but he doesn't even get a camp roster spot. The last one, Dennis Smith Jr., we heard last week rumblings. Dennis Smith Jr. is working out for the New York Knicks, that he is probably getting a camp spot, but instead he signs with Dallas. Um, Dallas signed him to a 1-year contract, but I wouldn't say he's going to make the big roster yet. He can still get cut and end up in the Dallas G League system. But he is going to camp with the Dallas Mavericks. So that's what we have for the camp roster. It's very interesting because these these um, these roster moves indicate that something is happening. Uh, so what's happening? So if we're going to fit Landry Shamet and we're going to fit Brogdon, the Knicks need to shed a little bit of money. They have enough money for a minimum veteran plus a second round exception. So if you're trying to fit 2 full vet exceptions, someone has to be dealt. A lot of people have put Tyler Kolek's name in there because Tyler Kolek makes just enough money that if you traded Tyler Kolek to another team and got nothing back, no player back, but maybe trade him for a couple second round picks. If you did that, Tyler Kolek would the subtracting of his contract would allow the Knicks to sign Landry Shamet and Malcolm Brogdon onto the roster. But there's a negative to that. That puts the Knicks at 14 roster spots. Legal. Knicks can totally do that. But the NBA, you have the ability to have 15 roster spots. Most teams will only fill 14. And it's smart to do that because what will happen is during the season, a couple things that happen. You can make a trade and you have one extra player come back. And what do? You can't put that player to the side. You have to cut the player or cut another player to make room. And if you cut another guaranteed, you're still paying the salary. You're just pushing them off the team. Um, the Knicks don't want to do that. Um, they don't have room to do that. So that would be bad if the Knicks did that. And that situation wouldn't even be allowed to happen. Um, so they couldn't do a deal where they got an extra guy back. The other thing that would happen is Kevin McCullough and Trey Jamison or Tosan from New Jersey. They want to come on to the New York Knicks to spend time with the team. Um, as a two-way contract, you need that's totally fine. But at the end of the year, you want to fill that 15th spot. That 15th spot going into the playoffs. Um, you really want to have as many guys available for the playoffs. So what a lot of teams do is, as we get closer to the playoffs, they'll add that 15th guy at a prorated rate. So a minimum is $2 million, but based on how many days they're going to play in the NBA, takes up a certain amount of money. So it's almost you're paying them at a daily rate, and it goes against the cap. If the Knicks did that trade, the difference between our cap number and the edge of the second apron would be $44,000. So the Knicks couldn't add a playoff person till a couple days before the playoffs. And how is that player going to be integrated? Like, would they be ready for the playoffs? It's kind of like a wasted thing to do. So you really want a bigger gap with that 15th spot. Like, you don't want to add somebody right before the playoffs. You want them to get acclimated. If you're using that two-way spot, um, to bring two-way contracts back and forth, you very well may hit your limit well before the end of the season. That's what we saw last year with Jacob Toppin. So by January, Jacob Toppin had reached his max amount of games to play for the Knicks. So what did the Knicks do? The Knicks cut him because basically all he could do left is play in the G League. He couldn't play for the Knicks anymore. So they kind of did him a favor by cutting him so that he can sign with Atlanta. So now he has a clean slate that he can play with a big club and go to the G League. So what if the Knicks, have Kevin McCullough coming back and forth all season, and it becomes January? Kevin McCullough would be stuck in the G League. So they don't want that to happen. You would be stuck in the G League. Do you want to add him at like 1 or 2 days before the end of the season? I don't think he's that. Doesn't become valuable from the playoffs because he's been away from the team for so long. I'm just gonna check in the chat real quick. Hey, Coach Shiar, always supporting. Randu, 1973, thanks for supporting. Quran at the Jeff fan. Salute family. JM3000, salute. And Just Knicks, thanks for joining in. So that's what it comes with that roster spot. So at this point, do we think Tyler Kolek is the guy? Not likely that just Tyler Kolek is going out, because it doesn't make sense. Because I couldn't use that 15th roster spot very efficiently throughout the season. Well, other people have said, okay, Pacome Dadier is that guy. Um, he makes a little bit more than makes a little bit more than Tyler Kolek. He'll give us a bigger gap, so you can use that 15th roster spot efficiently. But there's a problem. Perception is a thing. So basically, last year the Knicks had um, 2 first-round picks, and what they did is they turned those 2 first-round picks into 1 first-round pick and 3 seconds. And the 1 first-round pick is Pacome Dadier. So if you took Pacome Dadier now and you traded him away, you're basically saying you failed. You messed up. I don't think I don't think Leon wants to do that, especially when there were really good players on the board that the Knicks could have got. I don't think they want to do that. It's just bad PR. Also, if you traded Pacome Dadier and not brought a player back, and we are a league of wings, basically you would go back out and draft someone like Pacome Dadier next time. It doesn't make sense to do it. It looks bad. That's where the league is going. I don't think you can trade Pacome Dadier for nothing. Doesn't mean don't think they could trade Pacome Dadier. I think if you trade Pacome Dadier in a deal, you better bring someone better back. There's no way you could justify sending Pacome Dadier out and just getting a pick back, even if it's a first-round pick. It's hard to justify. Third one, Deuce McBride makes a little bit over $4 million. In his 4 years, he has 4 or 5. He's going to his 5th year. Everybody's called him a two-way player. Very valuable, great teammate. But the problem with Deuce is he hasn't had great shooting years. Basically, he's had a great half a year, the year he got the contract. But since then, and even before then, his shooting hasn't been there. He has the look that he's going to be a great shooter, but the numbers don't show it yet. He's someone where he can eventually turn it on. I think we kind of been banking on that. Also, one of the negatives about Deuce is he's known as a good defender, but he's 6'2". So the only players he can effectively defend are shorter players, but you don't want that to be the point guard. So it's kind of he's kind of hard to justify putting a never trade tag on him or making him off limits. So Deuce is someone I wouldn't put off limits from trading because he's valuable. He's probably more valuable to another team than he is to us. Because what have we done? We've kind of stacked that position. This year, Jordan Clarkson, Tyler Kolek, Kevin McCullough, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson. They all play the one or the two. So there's a bunch of guys who can step in. Not exactly what Deuce does, but there's a guy you could put there. Um, and let's be honest, this coach is not the last coach. And the last coach, defense went a long way with him. If you were a good defender, you can get away with not being good on offense. Um, Mike Brown, however, I think he values offense a little bit more. So just the thought of him being off limits, I don't think it applies to Deuce. Um, so Deuce is another person. Another person I would definitely put in here is Mitchell Robinson. And he has nothing to do with the wanting to close the gap on a couple million. They're not going to trade Mitch to make Landry, Shamet, and Brogdon work. They would trade Mitch because they've always intended to trade Mitch if he didn't sign an extension. That can be it here. I don't think the Knicks will go ahead with Mitchell Robinson if he doesn't sign an extension. The thought of, hey, we'll just take care of it next summer, could work for some teams. Some teams will risk that. They will go into free agency and say, hey, this is what we can offer, and they will make their pitch. The problem with the Knicks, if the Knicks did it next summer, they have zero leverage. The problem with the Knicks last year, they were in that spot with Hartenstein, and they were powerless. When KC made that offer, nothing we could do. Nothing we can do about it. The Knicks aren't going to put themselves in a position where they overpay for a player that they can't move later. I know it doesn't matter as long as it's your player, but the game with the Knicks has always been flexibility. Flexibility is everything to the Knicks. The ability this summer to just make an offer for Giannis held up the Mikal deal. Just the thought of him being available and the Knicks being able to make a very good offer held up that deal. So that flexibility is important. I don't think they're going to give Mitchell Robinson a $22 million deal. He could very well earn that type of salary, but the Knicks aren't going to give it to him without everybody in the NBA knowing he's worth it. And he's run out of time to make that happen. That time to prove it was last year, and he missed most of the year. And unfortunately, I'm just going to check at the chat real quick. Just Knicks isn't high on Tyler Kolek. Yeah, there's a lot about Tyler Kolek not to be high on. He has excellent floor general, his eyes, he can see, but the things that he doesn't do well, he really doesn't do well. And what we saw in Summer League, he didn't get better at them. So, we saw him getting pushed around in Summer League, which for me was the biggest concern, because that's something you can change. I thought maybe they would try to have him bulk up, and maybe the shot wouldn't fall or something like that, but you can at least come in the Summer League and show that, hey, I'm making strides in this area. But he didn't, and he was still getting pushed around. Ivory 10, he said, how do we know extension was even offered? We don't know that an extension was offered. We don't know. The thing is he didn't accept it. If they offered an extension, he didn't accept it. Um, Last year, with Randall, did we hear of an extension being offered? There were rumblings that there may have been an offer, but nobody really said. The only thing we heard silence, and people assumed, oh, okay, they're just going to go into the season, even though they never said anything about pushing it off, and he was promptly traded. Um, I don't think they're going to announce that they offered him and he rejected it, because if they announce that they offered him an extension and he rejected it and they shop him around, guess how much they're going to offer you less? You're trying to give us something you can't keep. You're offering something you don't want. That's something you don't want to get out. I would tend to say if the Knicks future, if Cat is the future of the Knicks, an investment is Mitch needs to happen. Well, not necessarily. If it was Tom Thibodeau, Thibodeau would put his foot down and say an investment in Mitch needs to happen. But it is not the Tom Thibodeau era. You can look at Mike Brown and in the rosters that he had in Sacramento. Did they've had poor rim protection. Like, Mitch is not the type of player he typically has. The Alex Lenz, um, the Trey Jamesons, he was perfectly fine playing those type of players, and that's why it's very um, unnerving that Trey Jemison is on a two-way contract, because I don't think he's someone who need to be protected. Um, yeah, yeah. So flexibility is key. Making sure everybody is worth their contract. To get rid of anybody, you don't want to be the person. Hey, I have to give you a second round pick. Hey, I have to give you multiple first round picks. Hey, I have to take on bad contracts. The Knicks do not want to be that situation. They don't want to be that team anymore. So, yeah, that's what we had for what's going on in camp. So, has there been any speculation of trades that the Knicks could do? Well, we did hear that when it came to Tyler Kolek, one team has made an offer. They didn't say what that offer was. They didn't say if that was second round picks or a protected first. They just said one team has made an offer for Tyler Kolek. But I'm not sure how that got out, maybe from the other team. Um, but that is something that has happened. So, what would I do? Well, one thing's for sure. I don't want to prioritizing getting picks. Like, we are a contending team. So I really want to focus on winning. So trading Tyler Kolek for a couple of seconds doesn't move me. Basically, you're saying, basically you're saying, um, you're putting Brogdon as the main backup guy at his age, and you don't know how well he's going to progress. He played in Washington last year. He didn't look very good, but it wasn't a very good team. And that wasn't his role, was pretty much to be a mentor to the young guys. He didn't look good last year. So what if you put Brogdon, you put all your faith in Brogdon, and he doesn't do well as Brunson's backup? Not only that, he plays at his own pace. He's not necessarily fast. And this is a team kind of built for running. You don't know how it's going to look. And then what happens Who do you invest for after that? Do you go into next summer looking for a point guard in next year's draft? That's where I am with the Tyler Kolek thing. Um, my focus, or how I would do it, I'd probably trade Deuce. We have a glut at shooting guard. He's not quite a point guard. Um, I would trade Deuce for shooting and height and shooting. So Deuce makes over 4 million. Bring back someone who's a minimum, like a minimum contract for his 4 million. So you get that space to sign those two players, and you make a gap so that you can add a 15th player at the end of the year. Or I think this is, I think this is the time that you trade Mitch. And I'm not a proponent of trading Mitch because I don't like Mitch. I'm just saying you trade Mitch because if he's not going to do an extension, we can't risk him getting hurt. We can't risk him leaving for nothing. So I do have a couple like trade ideas. So we had a couple ideas. And I wrote this one a little while ago. And it's not a big name, any big name here, at least for this one. Okay. So in this trade, I would be trading Deuce and Kolek. And I was doing this at the time because they were saying Brooklyn was possibly interested in Tyler Kolek. So this would be trading Deuce McBride to the Atlanta Hawks, who always could use a two-way player. Tyler Kolek to the Brooklyn Nets. And who the Knicks would get in return? Vit Krejcik. And the thing about him is he is 6'8", plays originally point guard. So point guard all the way up to small forward. And he shoots over 40% from the 3-point area. Up until last year, um, he had a hard time getting onto the floor with the Atlantic Hawks. Last year in the summer, what the Knicks did is they traded for his G League rights. So in the midst of them trading around, they traded for his G League rights, hoping that his time in the G League would be playing for the Westchester Knicks, that they could get a good look at him, perhaps find out more about him to be added to this roster. He never hit the G League last year. He played on the Atlanta Hawks roster all season. He has a very nice contract. He has multiple seasons left. He is getting paid minimum money. Last year, he played 20 minutes a game for the Hawks. Perhaps he could be available because the Hawks have so many wings this year. Perhaps they would be willing to trade him for someone valuable. So Deuce and his two-way ability may be in addition to the Hawks. So this is someone who I would target as I would target. In this trade, you're giving up 2 for 1. So you're making a roster spot. So you're not only adding Vit, You're adding a roster spot. So now you could sign Malcolm Brogdon. You can sign Landry Shamet. And you can sign Mohamed Diawara to the New York Knicks to be the 14th player and have the 15th roster spot open till later in the year. That's why I would do that. Um, is there another one? And you said Mitch, so I wanted to put a Mitch trade up here. Okay, let me see. Okay. Now this is the one that's I wouldn't say even I wouldn't even say it would be easy to do. And this was very speculative. Me and Freezy were talking a few nights about something like this. And this involves trading Mitch. You're not going to get a big. You're not going to get a better big back. So basically, you're trading Mitch. If you traded Mitch and you try to get another big back, it would be a very average player. No one who's going to really raise the ceiling. You'd probably get someone who's maybe a little better than Huck Porty, but not much better. So why even try to trade Mitch for another big? So let's try to get the maximum return for Mitch and use Huck Porty perhaps as the backup big. Um, Perhaps you use one of the guys that they're bringing into camp. So Trey Jemison, perhaps he's the guy who you have as a second backup big. Perhaps Alex Len, perhaps he's the second backup big. But you maximize the worth of Mitch. So the Knicks have a very valuable asset for the Wizards, and that is their protected first round pick for this year. Um, this is the last year before it turns into 2 seconds. So if the Washington Wizards end the year and after the lottery as the ninth place team or higher, they keep their pick. But if it hits eighth, or I'm sorry, if it's ninth or higher, the Knicks get the pick. If it's eight or up to the first pick, they get to keep it. This is something they've been getting away with the last few years because they've been so bad. But this year, they have a lot of young talent, and they have already a lot of decent players. And then the vets they have on this team, if they actually play, they'll be bad. But how bad would they be? You have to worry if you're the Wizards of being the sixth place team. What if you're the sixth worst team in the NBA, and then you hit the lottery, and instead of being placed sixth, because they what pretty much they're determining as the top four teams. What if they push? What if you get pushed down 3 spots? So you're the sixth worst team in the NBA. You can lose your highly valuable pick because you end up in ninth. So that pick, they should be worried about. So what if the Knicks gave them back their pick? Say, hey, don't worry about it. You just go out this year and you don't have to tank. Just see how these kids are gonna go. Like, doesn't matter if you're, the third worst or the sixth worst, or you can, or if you make the play in, you shouldn't be nervous about losing this pick. I'll give this pick back to you. And even if you weren't going to lose it, you're still giving us 2 high second round picks. That's very valuable. Not only that, I'm going to give you Mitchell Robinson. Also, I'm going to give you 2 more second round picks from New York. And then the Suns will add one. So at minimum, that's 5 second round picks. At minimum is 5 second round picks being given back to the Washington Wizards. At worst, at worst, like if that pick falls to the ninth, they're actually giving up they're giving up a lottery pick and 3 seconds in Mitchell Robinson. So what they give us back? Bilal Coulibaly. And I know a lot of people, Bilal Coulibaly stud. Like I I really like Bilal Coulibaly, and a lot of people around the NBA will. He is not a scrub. He is not an average rookie, but he's a two-way. He is a two-way wing, um, but the way Wizards have stacked talent, they have a bunch of two-way. They have a bunch of wings, and they added Trey Johnson. Trey Johnson now becomes the guy in Washington. Do you try to pour most of your minutes into Trey Johnson and Coulibaly, and then all these other wings that you've added, do they not really play? I think, I don't say it would even likely, but this gives them the opportunity. Hey, we can pivot to Trey Johnson being the guy we rely on worst, and we're just going to develop the other guys. We're going to give them all good minutes. Because if you revolve around Trey Johnson and Bilal Coulibaly, there's not a lot left. There's not a lot left for these other wings that they have added. To make it happen, you're also sending out Tyler Kolek, and I had Malachi Brenham, because Malachi Brenham is on the Wizards, who makes around $6 million. Because there has to be an advantage for the Washington doing this. They're not going to just take on this $13 million salary. Basically, you're going to have the Suns take on Kolek, who totally fits what they're doing. Young kids are going to develop. Malachi Brenham, a 1-year contract, $6 million. It's wide open. It's wide open in Suns. This would be right up their alley. And what would they give us in return? Nick Richards. Someone they thought they can have as a starter last year, and he's shown he's not a starter. He is a backup. They drafted, they traded in the draft for their center of the future. Nick Richards isn't that guy. But now they get a legit point guard who's worth a first round pick, and Brenham, a very movable contract in return. So it would make a lot of sense for the Suns to do this deal. I don't think Wizards are inclined to do this, but if they pivoted to Bilal Coulibaly, if they pivoted from Bilal Coulibaly to Trey Johnson, it would make sense. Yeah, so that's kind of what I had on the docket today. I will have coverage later in the week. We will be going. We will be talking after training camp. we're gonna hear kind of like the first thoughts from the coach on guys like Mitch. Because all summer he's kind of just been trying to be nice to the guys. Now we're gonna have to see what they think about him. Does it indicate going forward? Does he is he is he putting his foot down when it comes to Mitch, or is Mitch less important? Sorry guys. Sorry guys. 1 second. Give me 1 second. All right. So yeah, really looking forward to camp. Really looking forward to these camp battles. They make sure they were very versatile. No one is like super safe. Like they've left some versatility in this roster. Um, so like a very strong camp for Diawara. You can see him being on the team. A very strong Kevin McCullough. You can probably see how they can kind of make room for him for maybe to join the team and later in the year. Let's see how Trey Jemison looks. Could he find himself on this roster sneakily? Could he be one of the guys who's relied on if Mitch is moved? The guy from the Nets, Tosan. Um, he's kind of like that prototypical wing that the league is moving to, that the Nets pretty much couldn't hold on to. That's someone who can find themselves in like a key development position. Could some the way that this is shaping up, everybody can't be safe. Can Dink Pate like fight his way that he can perhaps get a two-way after a couple months, maybe after 60 days, get a two-way and the Knicks make a change somewhere to make that happen. So I'm really intrigued with what Camp's gonna do. There's a lot of unresolved issues around the league. So we're seeing we saw Cam Thomas is resolved, but the other restricteds still are battling it out with their teams. So moves by other teams could make other people available. Maybe a player shakes loose. The Knicks are versatile enough that if someone shakes loose, that they can move things around to grab a player who can surprisingly be made available. I think that's why you didn't see Landy Shamet signed to a guaranteed contract, and you didn't see Brogdon signed to a guaranteed contract, even though we know they're shoo-ins to make the team. You don't write it in pen because you want the flexibility in case something shakes loose. You at least have a fighting chance to still make it happen, and I'm really 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 intrigued. Thank you for joining the NBA Economy Show. I know this we haven't been as consistent as we want to. Life is happening, but this week we will go live a few times. I know the Nick of Time show will be going live Wednesday after training camp, after that first day, and we'll talk about the first day of camp. I'm not sure if I'm going to be on the panel. as I have something going on that evening. But I think I really, really enjoy you guys joining. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. I do have a Cash App, you know, what the link is to Cash App to add to the account. It's going to really help the channel. I thank everybody for joining, and I will see you next time.